Today is a win. Today is a victory of all victories for Sean Combs.
I want to thank the jury for putting such great care into this case.
Tonight, Sean Diddy Combs' legal team celebrating outside the New York federal courthouse. Just hours earlier, Combs stunned by the jury's decision.
After the judge had left the bench, Sean Combs fell to his knees in prayer. He addressed his family saying, "I'm coming home, baby, I'm coming home."
A judge has ruled Sean Diddy Combs will remain in jail after a jury found him guilty on 2 counts of prostitution. The music mogul was acquitted, though, on the most serious charges, that's sex trafficking and racketeering. Attorneys for Combs declined to comment on the bail being denied, saying that those things are still in process. Listen.
We are not nearly done fighting. Today was a major, major step in the right direction, but we fight on, and we're going to win, and we're not going to stop until he walks out of prison a free man to his family. Go! Let Puffy go!
Outside court calls for the immediate release of the man formerly known as Puff Daddy. Sean Diddy Combs, a music mogul who built his own brand, had been facing the possibility of life in prison.
Man, I'm so happy right now, man.
Instead, celebrations among his supporters as he's cleared of the most serious charges against him. Combs was still found guilty of transportation for prostitution.
It's not a party till we're all here.
Not that you'd know it from the ecstatic reaction of his defence team, including lead lawyer Mark Agnifilo. Sean Combs was found guilty of 2 federal crimes, yet this feels like a victory tour. Is that how it feels for you?
It feels good. It feels good. So thank you all for coming.
We love y'all. We love everybody watching. So happy. Pop's coming home. God bless. God bless the whole world.
What was going through your head when the verdict was read? Happy.
Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about how P. Diddy has all but been acquitted of some of the most serious crimes he was charged with by the federal US government over there in the Southern District State of New York, when federal trials normally have a 95% success rate when it comes to convictions. How have we sat through 2 months of testimony from his victims, who were given the most limited protection of anonymity, be re-victimized and publicly humiliated on the stand, for him to only be found guilty of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution? Are they serious? How did the jury, who was shown a ton of evidence of the excessive drug use, the violence that was used to coerce his victims and witnesses to his crimes? There were guns with the serial numbers scratched out. He bribed the hotel guards to get rid of the evidence of his violence and protect his public image. He assaulted people who worked for him and who were friends with the victims. We heard them recount these traumatic events day after day. His assistant, Brendan Paul, who'd previously been mislabeled as a drug mule in the media, he was paid $100 grand a year, mainly to clean up after his sexploitation had, while at work, been arrested and charged with drugs offences. But Diddy was cleared of running a criminal enterprise. Who gets arrested for carrying their boss's drugs? And that was apparently after doing a sweep of what he'd left behind in a hotel room. If it's not a criminal enterprise. We were shown pictures of Kid Cudi's car after the firebombing attempt, where police had him in the report at the scene in a vehicle registered to his business. And then years later, Kid Cudi testifies. He apologizes for his behavior to him. This is because he found out his recording artist, his girlfriend Cassie, had a supposed fling with him when they were not together, because she knew about his other girlfriends, and that publicly he often posed with the mother of his children, Kim Porter. He demanded and received a payment from her parents, which they made believing he was going to release a sex tape of their daughter. Nope, nothing to see here. He's just a legit record mogul. It wasn't sex trafficking. She enjoyed getting her mouth pissed in. She enjoyed having sex with violent, unstable, quote-unquote escorts, at least 2 of whom are in jail. One for murdering a woman. That was all her idea, was how the defense tried to frame it. Part of being in a relationship with a celebrity, nothing to do with the fact that she wasn't able to release her own music or make money of her own without constant harassment and surveillance. And so after the jury found him not guilty of sex trafficking and RICO, it's no wonder her attorney, Douglas Wigdor, wrote a letter to the judge, Judge Subramanian, who Diddy said in court had done an excellent job, respectfully requesting that Mr. Combs be denied release pending his sentencing date on October the 3rd, as she believes he is likely to pose a danger to the victims who testified in this case, including herself, as well as to the community. And so we've got a problem here. The victims who testified don't feel safe, other women don't feel safe, and the judge seems to recognise it, as he told Diddy's lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, you full-throttedly in your closing argument told the jury there was violence here. The judge then noted one violent offence against a former girlfriend, aka Jane, which was in June 2024 when Combs was under investigation. As Laura Richards, the crime analyst, tweeted, Combs is a violent serial abuser. The jury didn't get it, but the judge does. Evan Rachel Wood, who was abused by Marilyn Manson, posted, there is no consent in domestic violence relationships, period. Once the threat of violence is there, you comply. You do not consent. We clearly have a long way to go in our understanding of this. And the problem is, the judge is not the one who makes the verdict. He gives the instruction to the jury. And now the trial's over, and it was very costly and hard to listen to. And this verdict is not going to protect people from this man committing the same crimes in the future. And he's very unlikely to be compliant. He was not compliant when he was under surveillance. His hotel room that he was arrested in was all set up, ready for another freak-off or hotel night or whatever name you want to give it. During this trial, somehow the jury have been hoodwinked into believing that these hotel nights, where women that he had very strong financial arrangements with, such as paying their rent or being in charge of what records they're allowed to release, would be required to make themselves physically ill for days on end, becoming addicted to drugs because they loved him, and that's part of being in the relationship. And so, understandably, a lot of women are feeling like the justice system has failed them in this case. And then some of the worst men are celebrating that yet again a man has not been held accountable for obvious sex offences. And the other thing about this case is how much attention and toxic energy it has attracted. Outside the courtroom was a daily circus where homeless people who live on the streets of New York were paid to sit in line for YouTubers or members of the press to enter the court.
If it don't slip, you must have quit. If it don't slip, you must have quit. If it don't slip, you must have quit.
And some of these same people were paid to wear t-shirts to promote a Diddy meme coin. I kid you not. There was a whole microeconomy built out of this trial, which one reporter named as trial tourism.
Yeah, they just tried to pay me $20 to wear a free fucking shirt.
Stop. I could tell because
the lady right there, she just kept convincing me to go wear a shirt, and I'm like, I'm good.
so just $20, and if you need $20, all you have to do is wear a free puff shirt.
And just stand out here.
And you said no.
Yeah, I said no.
Did they say how many hours?
$20 an hour. And she told me she got paid like $60 yesterday for standing out here in 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, but like he told me that it's for a Diddy coin, so I'm not really sure what that is.
So this meme coin, which is a form of cryptocurrency, it's a way to make money by scamming your fans into believing it has some value, was apparently being run and promoted off Diddy's X account. One legal expert said it could worsen his sentence if he's found guilty for showing a lack of remorse and literally cashing in. So it's okay for Diddy and his supporters to cash in, but the judge made it very clear that he did not want the jury speaking to the media. So already the speculation has started as to why the jury did not find him guilty of the more serious crimes. And what's even more weird is the day before the verdict was announced, announced, it didn't look like it was going Diddy's way. We were told after consulting with his lawyer Mark Agnifilo, he looked down again, resting his head in his hand. The judge had received a note at 4:05 p.m. saying they'd reached a verdict on counts 2, 3, 4 and 5, but were unable to reach a verdict on count 1, as we have jurors on each side, and count 1 was the RICO charge. And then the next day, which is when the judge said the trial would be over, miraculously they came to the unanimous decision that he was not guilty of count 1 RICO. And Inner City Press, who's been live tweeting the whole trial that people have been making their content from, had this to say.
And I'm pretty sure that the Mann Act charges are going to be appealed. Alexandra Shapiro, during the pretrial, said, the statute is unconstitutional, racist as applied. So I don't mean to. It's a tragic thing. I just spoke to somebody as I came out, and what I can say is that the conduct described is highly problematic. The thing that I don't want to be graphic, but where Jane said vomited between escort 1 and 3, and Combs apparently said, get out there and perform. But the thing is it a federal crime? Was it overcharged? I think, as I felt throughout, the prosecutors, for good reasons, from their point of view, were trying to kind of break new ground and say, if you're an executive that uses your assistants to, provide procure and use sexual favors, you're going to be charged under RICO. Didn't work this time. I'd literally like to hear from the jurors, Personally, I think Jane's testimony wasn't that, the witness known as Jane wasn't that compelling for a variety of reasons. The prosecutors chose the witnesses that they did. There's 30 civil cases. There's more people out there. I don't know if they held tryouts, but it is what it is. I know that there were going to be many people very disappointed about it. I'd kind of like to know what turned them. I think it's significant that nothing was asked as to Jane and sex trafficking. I think that it wasn't even close, apparently. They looked at it in terms of Cassie. They looked at the threats made on the plane from Khan. They looked at the videotape and the aftermath. They looked at what Daniel Phillips saw, but they came back with a not guilty. The Mann Act charges were kind of slam dunk. You had transportation of Daniel Phillip and all the Cabral and their performance. So it is what it is.
Just a few weeks ago, Harvey Weinstein was found guilty of sexual assault in a retrial in New York after his last conviction was judged a mistrial. All 3 victims accused Weinstein of using his power in the entertainment industry to sexually abuse them. One of the victims said the verdict gave her hope that there is a new awareness around sexual violence and that the myth of the perfect victim is fading.
This jury that deliberated did not find sex trafficking when it came to Cassie Ventura. They also didn't find it when it came to Jane. And I want to ask you about Jane in a moment. Mm-hmm. But did it surprise you when it came to Cassie Ventura that they did not convict on sex trafficking?
No, I don't. I think it was a difficult thing to prove, and I think there was always some doubt, whether, because I think what the judge says, it has to be forced. Mm-hmm. And I think the defense did show some messages where it didn't seem that it was forced.
Oh, her text messages when she talked about it.
Yeah.
That was really important to you to consider.
I think that was one aspect. Yes.
Did that make you feel that it was consensual?
It did seem like it. Yeah.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
And it's about the video from the Intercontinental Hotel that you saw a lot.
Yeah, it was.
Was it a? Did you see it?
Sometimes they did it like frame by frame by frame.
What did you think of that? Did you see it? Enough? Too much? Too little? What?
I mean, it was a very bad video. I think they showed it enough. I mean, they tried to show it both sides, and
did it make a difference to you in the actual charges that you would have had to deliberate over? Because he wasn't charged with.
He wasn't charged with domestic violence. No.
Did that surprise you?
No, because I don't think domestic violence is a federal crime. So.
Did it cloud the way you saw the rest of the charges by seeing that video?
No, I think we looked at just what we were supposed to be what the judge had said we were supposed to look at, and then based off of the evidence that was presented to us, they ruled in that way.
This was 7 weeks of your life, hearing all of this testimony. You were an alternate. You did not deliberate, but did you agree with the final verdict?
I understood the final verdict, and I think if I, because I took a copious amount of notes overall. I took 350 pages worth of notes. Because at the end, we weren't told who was an alternate, who was the main juror until literally the last second when they were reading when the judge was reading his entire statement at the end. It was like, the first 12 of you are the jurors, the last 5 are the alternates. So we didn't know, even in the jury room, no one treated everyone, we all were equal, because we didn't know who was who.
Would you have acquitted him on RICO?
I think reading all my notes and looking back at the evidence, I probably would have reached the same conclusion as the other jurors.
What was it about that charge?
I don't, the thing with because we were asked and the judge had instructed us that we have to find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Mm-hmm. And I think there was always a little bit of doubt in people's mind. And I think it was a tough case to prove, especially the first one. And there was always a little bit of doubt there, even from the beginning.
Why did you doubt?
I think some of the charges, some of the witnesses, if you look at it one way, but then when you were listening to the defense, you could see it's their way as well. I think overall, in the way I look at it, both sides presented really good. Both sides presented themselves well. We were very impressed with the prosecution and the defense, how they, their professionalism, how they carried themselves. It was really good lawyering, as they say.
Racketeering is notoriously a complex case. Did you feel that the prosecution presented enough evidence to support that there was even an enterprise?
I think they did the best that they could, but I think it was a tough case to prove.
Why?
When you look at the charges, kidnapping, arson, forced labor, the government had one side, but then the defense, they had some pretty good rebuttals to it. So that I think added some doubt always, and I think in people's mind.
I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. I was disgusted then when I did it. I'm disgusted now.
See, what bothers me, and I have taken several days to process the verdict of this trial, is that although the alternate juror makes it very clear he didn't think that the witnesses were necessarily lying or not credible because they were paid substantial settlements from Sean Diddy Combs, but the defense never denied the offences he was accused of. They never said he wasn't violent. They never said he didn't rape anyone. Their only defence was to show that any of his victims had consented to his abuse, and they could have walked away at any time. They chose not to. Or they got their dates wrong, even though it was very clear the financial hold he had over them. And it's sad that the women who were not on trial have had their behaviour judged and analysed, even more than that of Piss Diddy, who needed other men performing sex acts to turn him on. The narrative is framed around these old stereotypes of gold diggers and super freaks. His former assistant, Mia, another single mother, had her anonymity exposed. Her old Instagram videos where she was wishing P. Diddy a happy birthday were used to humiliate and discredit her. She testified that he, as her boss, sexually assaulted her, and that offence has not been acknowledged. Her salary was half that of the male assistants. Brendan Paul was told he would be working so many hours he should get rid of any friends, social life or girlfriend. Everyone's fine with it. Crack on. This is not forced labour. Totally normal to get arrested at work. There was a comment I saw in regards to Marilyn Manson that expressed it very well. The legal system has been manipulated to reformulate the concept of rape. And lawyers like Mark Garagos, Diddy's legal consultant, whose daughter was on the legal team, who has himself been named in a criminal conspiratorial case, will go on as many media platforms as he can, discrediting the Me Too movement and standing up for male abusers like his former client Chris Brown, who every time he is held accountable for seriously violent offences, he manages to pay his way out of it. And someone who wasn't able to beat the system with a very similar pattern of behaviour is a man called Eligio Bishop, or NatureBoy.
On March 1st, 2024, self-proclaimed cult leader Eligio Bishop, also known as NatureBoy, was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, plus 10 years for rape, unlawful restraint, and 3 counts of revenge porn. The trial took place in Atlanta, Georgia, and lasted a week. It took the jury less than 8 hours to return a guilty verdict.
Eligio Bishop guilty on all counts.
Eligio Bishop has just been found guilty of rape, false imprisonment, and posting revenge porn online.
The DeKalb County judge issued the maximum sentence, sending Bishop to prison for life.
Who am I?
The Honorable Master Teacher NatureBoy, Commander-in-Chief of the Earthplane, my highest self.
Who am I?
Queen Eliana, Commander-in-Chief of the Earthplane, my highest self.
Where do you come from?
The highest frequency of the sun.
And what is your mission?
To collect the elite and convict the weak. Reflection!
I love myself.
I love myself.
These are my motherfucking worshipers, and that's what the fuck they do. They sit around and look at me all day in awe. Everything that I say, they stuck on me. It don't matter what I do. It don't matter what I say, they gonna be there. That's how they are, because I'm a God. I'm a real God in real life. These people is my slaves, bro. Are these the best servants that the African American people have to offer? No. This is good practice.
Wake up, 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 wake up.
Mr. Bishop, you're a master manipulator and probably the classic definition of a narcissist. So with that, I am going to follow the recommendation of the state in this case. On the rape, he'll be sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, followed by 10 years consecutive for the false imprisonment. And on the internet porn, count 3, 12 months to serve, concurrent to the false imprisonment. The internet porn, I'll run concurrent to the false imprisonment. Internet, 5 years. So it's 12 months on count 3, 5 years on count 4, and 5 years on count 5. All of that will run concurrent to the false imprisonment. But the false imprisonment is consecutive. So it's life without parole plus 10 years. And hopefully he will never be able to take advantage of anybody else again.
Compared to Bad Boy and Sean John Enterprises, and NatureBoy's organisation Carbon Nation doesn't come anywhere close in terms of how many people it impacted, how much influence it had, compared to that of P. Diddy. And if you don't know who he is, I mean, he's kind of like an underground figure on social media. He had a bit of a following, but there was only maybe like 10 or 20 members of the cult that actually lived with him. And I think now it's back down to about 2 people. And there's lots of documentaries on his story and how he operated and what led to his downfall. But if you listen to what he was charged with, it's the same offences. Imprisonment of people who wanted to escape. Revenge P. The videos that Diddy made of his victims that he used to emotionally blackmail them, to keep them under his control, they've now been shown to the jury. They were seen by his members of staff. I don't know why that's not charged as revenge P. Like Diddy, NatureBoy believed in polygamous relationships and fathered kids by lots of different women. And he worked very hard brainwashing the women that came into his life into accepting his views on that, which was a huge cause of conflict, just like in Diddy's life. He coerced them into having relationships with other men, he gave them STDs, and he used money, violence, and sexual violence as a means of control. And all these women and men looked up to him. They were under his spell. They gave up their lives to go and live with him. They collaborated with him in producing this kind of social media content, just as Diddy was obsessed with filming everything. And they did it to entertain their followers and maintain the illusion that they were living a wonderful life, which encouraged more people to want to come and join them. And NatureBoy had less victims than Diddy, but he's doing life plus 10 and no parole. Crazy work. I think it highlights a huge flaw and shows the double standard in the justice system, where if you have a lot of money behind you, the jury let you off. And in the case of Diddy, the prosecution could have gone for RICO so they could go after his assets. And it didn't pay off. And this is not a system where women are safe. It sets a precedent when we have the Me Too movement for less women to come forward. Because who would want to put themselves through that for such a negative outcome? And when it comes to his business model, let's not forget, it was the producer of his Love album, Lil Rod, who came out with allegations that he never received adequate payment for his work or royalties, which is what Dawn Richard and Cassie also testified to.
How much did they take all your publishing? How much did you receive as compensation versus how much were you either expecting or verbally had agreed with them that you should have got?
I received nothing towards the production. If anything, I got reimbursements back for money spent or money I was getting ready to lose over here. For example, at the time I was with Music Soul Child, and let's just say on a Saturday, I'm getting ready to go out with music, but on Friday before, Puff was like, no, I need you to stay around. I was like, well, I'm about to miss this right here. If you guys are going to hold me back, then I need to get that. So I received some sort of payments in terms of reimbursement for that, or if I was there ordering Uber Eats or picked up a rental car or a hotel expense, something like that. But nothing actually towards the production aspect, and they were trying to give me zero publishing. Zero. You know what I'm saying?
And I am not a fan of DJ Academic. He has a terrible reputation for mistreating women himself. And he's an awful interviewer. He's always interrupting him. And I don't know why Lil Rod wasn't called to testify at the trial. In his civil suit, he made allegations of RICO. And in this interview, he said he and his team have questions as to why evidence was left out of the trial. In his suit, he showed pictures of the aftermath of a shooting in a studio called Chalice Studio in LA, which he said Diddy and his son were responsible for. He named Fahim Mohammed, who was brought up at the trial, as Diddy's fixer, who Mr. Coombs instructs his staff to always contact if they are ever pulled over by the police in Miami or California. Then there was the mention of the 2C, which we've now seen a lot of pictures of. Lil Rod said in February 24 that Diddy tried to get him to take drugs. And just like NatureBoy, Lil Rod felt like Diddy wanted him to get involved with the women around him and men like Stevie J. And when he spoke out about not getting paid, he was threatened by Diddy's security. This is all what was testified about in the trial. He also said in another interview he was denied food and sleep.
For you, blurred the lines of consensual and non-consensual, right? Am I paraphrasing right or no?
Listen, without talking specifically about an ongoing case, I'll just say this. This type of things happen a lot in the music industry. We're in the studio, there's drugs. We're in the studio, somebody's in the back bathroom doing something together. You know what I'm saying? Somebody walk in, there's guns, etc. This is just, and that's a normal day. You know what I'm saying? Now, a lot of things that I've mentioned inside of my lawsuit is not normal. You know what I'm saying? But I don't really want to focus this meeting about my case in particular, because that's still it's still active. You know what I'm saying?
Did you feel forced? Did you feel Diddy was basically saying, hey, listen, yo, Playboy, we all doing this shit, man. Come on, get down with the get down.
You know him, bro. He's a very, very influential guy, bro. You know what I'm saying? And that's just where we at. And now we toting a little too much on the civil suit that I'm saying just wait for trial. And you know what I'm saying? I can't control what goes on in the courtroom that he just had. You know what I'm saying?
True.
Me and my team have so many questions that we're asking amongst ourselves when it comes down to that. It's a lot of evidence that wasn't brought in the courtroom. I specifically know. You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask this question, and hopefully you could ask this question. You filed a civil suit. This is a common question that we constantly hear now. Why, if some of these things were happening that you felt uncomfortable with, why never alert authorities, and why never, you're kind of a whistleblower in terms of the civil suit, why not go to the police?
Again, if that's the case, I'm going to the police on a daily basis in terms of some of the things that are happening inside of the studio. All right. However, I've taken a lot of hits over the years from people, and I just keep walking. I'm a strong person, and this industry is just so poison. And the reality is, if people are not fucking you over backwards, excuse my French, you know what I'm saying, they don't want to work with you. However, I had enough, you know what I'm saying, and that was a last string between Puff and I. That was just like, okay, this is it. You know what I'm saying? My kids got it.
Because some people might be like, is this nigga telling the truth? Did he just throw out a bunch of shit? Did he make some stuff up? We don't got to get into everything, but I need to make sure you're affirming that that's what you are still saying happened.
It's time to double down, bro.
Okay. So
everything that I said is true. It's 100% accurate. I'm not walking back on anything.
Okay.
Some people are saying civil suits are a better way to get justice because the burden of proof is lower. As far as Lil Rod goes, his attorney, Tyrone Blackburn, wasn't shown in the best light during the trial. One of the witnesses who Diddy had beaten up and dangled over a balcony had to fire him. So that's not great. I guess we'll have to wait and see. We also have to see how the sentencing turns out. One thing I'm not going to miss is the content creators that were covering this case. Some of them said they were unbiased. I don't really care because I did not want Diddy to get let off. This was never about a fair trial. The evidence was overwhelming. He has zero regard for what's right, and he never has. And anyone that thinks this verdict result was good for anyone, least of all women, I don't think they're thinking straight. Content creators made it all about them. The crazy clickbait thumbnails, the AI misinformation channels, the P. Diddy scammer channels, anything about secret tunnels. And now the trial's over, they're beefing about baby oil and who told the most lies. And this does give misogyny a boost, as some of the men creators are angry at the women creators who did not support P. Diddy. We've seen all the evidence, we don't have to agree with the verdict, and I honestly do not want to hear about baby oil ever again.